Welcome back to our series called Across State Lines, a series where we dissect and investigate the most notorious cold cases of each state. Today we go to California, where the murders acted and filmed in Hollywood would become a dark reality.
What should we say? What's like a sophisticated-ish thing to say? Something that encapsulates who we are and why we're doing this.
Just two guys who think that unsolved crimes are fascinating.
Yep, just two dudes who have a yearning for justice. I guess what you just said. I'm Sean.
I'm David.
Perfect. That's all you guys need to know.
But we have to first announce that we have a guest star here. Introduce yourself. Why are you qualified to be investigating such a case as this with us?
You know, I have no qualifications, but I'm here for a good time.
So you might be overqualified to be on the show then. Let us shout out Terry, our computer man. Terry, want to say anything? He's a man of few words. May 27th, 1994, Alameda County, Castro Valley, California. Jenny Lynn lived in a very safe suburban community with her mom, Mai Leon, and her dad, John. They had moved from Taiwan in search of a place to raise a family. Jenny was a very gifted 14-year-old. She was the valedictorian nominee for her middle school and excelled in music, such as the piano and violin.
I don't know if middle schools did valedictorian.
I didn't.
I didn't either, honestly, but
Tells you the three of us didn't.
I was going to say, we weren't qualified. It was a Friday night, and Jenny was home alone, as usual, as her dad worked at a Federal Reserve in San Francisco until 6 p.m., and her mom was at her job as well. Jenny watched some TV at around 2:45 p.m., cooked some food, and made phone calls to her friends until 5:15 p.m. The friends indicated nothing seemed out of the ordinary during their phone calls. However, when John tried calling the house phone to get a hold of Jenny 15 minutes later, after her last phone call, nobody answered. John arrived home at 6:45 p.m. The TV was on and food was on the table, but no sign of Jenny. He noticed the back door was unlocked, which was unusual. He poked his head outside and called for Jenny with no response. The only thing out there was their dog, who appeared as normal as ever. With each step and no sign of Jenny, unease began to fill John's stomach. He went up to his bedroom and noticed his bathroom door was closed. It immediately struck him as odd, given that they never had that door closed if not in use. His worst nightmare became a grim reality when he opened the door. Jenny laid naked and dead on the floor of the bathroom. Duct tape bound her hands and feet while blood surrounded the stab wounds on her body. Unfortunately, there was nothing John could do for Jenny besides call the police as fast as possible. The community was dumbfounded that something so vile could happen in an area that seemed so far and safe from the evils of the world.
That's a really quick turnaround from 5:15 to 6:45.
Not only that, there was no chill.
Yeah,
Normal day, and then she's dead on the floor, naked with her stab wounds and all that.
like within an hour. That means he came in and he was pretty quick with it.
Or she.
Or she.
Yeah, Ethan.
My bad.
The investigation started off very promising. Multiple footprints would be found around the house. While none were fully complete, it was enough to run through analysis. The shoe was a gorilla work boot size 9 to 11. The back door that had been unlocked had marks on the outside of it, indicating someone from the outside tried to break it open. Police pieced together that the perp gave up on the back door and went to find another entry, which led them to a downstairs window that was broken. The windows downstairs had cinched curtains in front of them. Upon further inspection, it was clear that the curtains in front of the broken window did not seem as neat as the others. It was tampered, showing someone messed it up and tried to make it appear undisturbed. No weapon that could have been used to stab Jenny was found in or around the house. Further tests couldn't conclusively pinpoint what the murder weapon even could have been. As for the body, Jenny had no signs of sexual assault, which raises questions as to why she was naked. Why do you think she was found with no clothes if she was not sexually assaulted?
I don't know. Maybe the perp was thinking about doing something and had a change of plans halfway through.
Yeah, I don't know how much credence we can give to this, but maybe she was going to like take a shower or something and he just waited until she was somewhere vulnerable, like like getting ready to take a shower or something. I mean, I don't know how the clothes were laid out or any signs of a struggle, anything like that.
I also find it interesting that they couldn't determine what the murder weapon was used. Is that generally pretty difficult to determine?
Or was that just they didn't find anything that could have been used?
Both. They didn't find anything in the house that would have been the murder weapon, they believe, but also it's never been disclosed what potential type of blade it even was. When I was first reading, I was like, oh, it was a kitchen knife probably, or like a pocket knife the guy had. But the fact they haven't come out with anything makes it seem like it's probably something a little atypical for a stabbing victim to have. But I was thinking more along the lines of maybe he was going to do something to her and then was interrupted or like spooked off or something. So he didn't have time to do anything. But she could have been like about to take a shower, get her in a vulnerable moment. The only thing I don't know is how many bathrooms are in that house. Like if they all shared their one bathroom that was the parents' bathroom, or how normal was it to go take a shower in her parents' bathroom instead of a different one? Did they have a different one? I don't know. There was also a witness. They reported they saw a man they didn't recognize walking away from the neighborhood, crossing a baseball field right behind Jenny's house at around 6 or 6:30 p.m. The witness states he seemed to be avoiding eye contact as he walked. He carried a blue duffel bag with red stripes and some sort of clothing covering his head. There were no signs of a robbery, as nothing was taken from the home, making it clear this was a targeted attack. Once the crime scene had been surveyed, the Alameda police deduced that the killer had gotten inside the house before Jenny got home, showing they knew her and her parents' schedules. They then escaped using the sliding glass door they had tried to use to break in the home. Jenny never knew that while she was talking on the phone, in the comfort of her own home, someone was upstairs, listening to every word, waiting for her to hang up.
It's literally like my greatest fear.
Isn't that freaky?
That's so terrifying to think. I remember being home alone as a kid and like having that fear that someone's just like around the corner.
Yeah.
Like who knows?
Oh, I wanted to show you guys photos of the broken window is particularly interesting because of how small the hole is for someone to get through it. You see,
is that a tiny window?
It's a tiny window. And it's like, how the frick could a grown man fit through that?
Well, especially shoe size 9 to 11. So that usually implies that it's not like a small, tiny dude. I don't know how.
That's a pretty small window.
It's a very small window. And there's still so much glass remaining, too.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting to me.
Maybe he tried to break the window and then reached up for the latch or something?
Perhaps. I was living on a reservation at one point. Our little house got broken into and something similar happened. We don't know how they got in, but there's a little window that was broken. We had no idea how the guy got in through that tiny window, but some guy got in and then he left like the back door as well.
Well, it's like oddly circular too.
Yeah.
Like if you break a window with like a rock or something, it's not going to break like that. There's going to be shards everywhere. Like, and if you were to try to crawl through that, you're getting nicked no matter what. But the weird thing is
this the only picture?
The broken window, yes. There's like two more of the disturbed curtain, but the police actually did a reenactment of it because they at first were like, I don't think someone could fit through this without cutting themselves or anything. And like an officer was totally able to do it. So I guess it was possible. It was just interesting how small the hole was and how like clean it looked. Now that we have the crime laid out, let's dive into some theories about who it was that broke in and changed the lives of this family and community that day. Theory number 1. A 22-year-old neighbor in the community was responsible for the murder of Jenny Lynn. 2 months after the murder, police received a tip about a certain neighbor. His real name hasn't been made public, but the police refer to him as Doug. Doug lived with his parents in the same neighborhood as Jenny. His father's business involved sharp surgical tools. It would make sense, let's say he used a scalpel or whatever, that might be harder to identify than a knife attack.
Well, something I want to add is I work at a cadaver lab at my school, and we do like dissections on cadavers, and we use scalpels, and they're crazy sharp and like make very fine and cuts that would be hard to identify. And especially if it's more trauma based, if you're trying to attack someone with a scalpel, it would not be pretty and it would not look good.
Yeah.
They're pretty small, but they're super, super sharp.
Sharp like Kung Fu Panda when he's looking at the green sword thing and cuts himself.
Yeah. Which one is that?
It's the first one when he's in like the Hall of Heroes or whatever that's called, and he's like, "Oh, the sword of this," and he's like, "Legend has it if you look at it, it's so close it would cut you." And he cuts himself looking at it.
I don't remember that.
We're talking that sharp.
That sharp.
Which raised more suspicion because of Jenny being stabbed. When he was questioned about Jenny Lynn, he claimed he didn't know her and hadn't heard of her murder until a few days later.
I'm calling immediate cap on that. Maybe not that he didn't know her, but that he didn't hear about it until like a couple days later or whatever.
In a small community, like it's all the talk. Everyone has to know.
Well, just imagine your neighborhood. Like everyone knows when someone gets divorced like that. Imagine if someone got murdered.
Oh, for sure.
Like I refuse to believe the homie would not know at all that this girl was stabbed to death in her own home.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like too, he says he didn't know her. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I could name just about every family and almost every member of every family within half a mile of my house, depending on how you draw that circle, depending on how close of neighbors they were. That just seems
well. These houses are their houses in proximity of each other. I don't know.
Okay.
But the houses are like 3 feet of yard between each house. Like they're closely put together. And this community is like you have to go out of the way to even get there. You're not going to just stumble upon it. You have to deliberately go way up and find it. So it's pretty close. It's not like a gated community, but it's like a secluded community.
He also left and moved in with a friend not long after the murder, but had moved back a couple weeks later, as if to avoid the community until the heat died down. When asked about his whereabouts on the day Jenny was murdered, he said he was home all day until he picked up his girlfriend and returned back to the house to hang out. However, his family was out of town that day, meaning no one could verify his alibi. Furthermore, the police questioned Doug's girlfriend, and she said her work shift that day didn't end until 8 p.m., long after Jenny's body was discovered, which means Doug would have had plenty of time to break into the house, wait and carry out the murder, and come back before anyone knew he was gone from his home. Unfortunately, they didn't have anything else on him and moved on to other suspects. That is, until 4 months later, when they revisited Doug. But now, Doug had a completely different story to tell the police. He was now telling them that the day Jenny was killed, he was at his job all day at a car wash until 6 p.m. He then went home and picked up his girlfriend to hang out. The police went to Doug's job to confirm his new alibi when his boss said Doug didn't work that day. Months later, Doug was asked to take a polygraph test and a duct tape rip test to compare the duct tape used on Jenny.
I guess one thing is, I think that's super suspicious. You change your story within 4 months and 2 people discredit your story pretty much.
Here, you be the pessimist, I'll be the optimist.
Okay, I'm pessimist.
Put yourself in his shoes of the cops come by and they're asking about this murder. They're asking you specifically where you were. If you didn't have anything to do with it, but were scared like, holy crap, they think I did something, you could lie and say, I didn't even hear about it until 3 days later. And then they ask where you were and you just say, I was home alone. They leave and you keep thinking about it. You're like, oh my gosh, no one can confirm what I just said to the police or whatever. And they're definitely going to know that. So you change your story when they come back and you're like, I was actually at work all day or whatever. Like, he's not guilty. He's just paranoid that he might think the cops are guilty. So that's why he lies instead of actually having some malicious conscience or whatever.
Right. And I totally see that side. But at the same time, I feel like if you truly are not guilty, I would almost take the stance that you would like take a stand and be like, maybe he was just home alone all day and he was just doing nothing. He could still make that claim and claim that he didn't do it. I don't know. I feel like you don't necessarily, like, you might be scared, and maybe this is more me, but I would just tell the truth and rely on that. There isn't enough evidence in the first place to fully convict him. They found they had to move on anyways, but I think changing your story is maybe just a stupid move by him if he is not guilty.
Or bonus theory to go along with theory number 1 is Doug, our boy, runs into this dude covered in blood after he stabs someone. Now stick with me here. So Doug knows Jenny, sees this guy come out of her house covered in blood. They make eye contact. The man comes over and is like, listen, Doug, you say anything, I'm gonna come back for you. I'm gonna mess you the frick up. And so Doug, trying not to say anything so he doesn't get stabbed, changes his story and panics, thinking that he's come up with something better just to protect himself.
Crazy theory.
Can you substantiate that at all?
Yeah, is there any evidence?
Prove that it's untrue.
You got me there. It's far-fetched, but it's not as far-fetched as we may think, because there were people who came out months later, like witnesses, who said, I heard glass breaking at this time, or a dog barking, or whatever. And they didn't come out because they were scared maybe whoever it was would come after them for snitching on them. So it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Because one thing you did mention is that they're all the houses are really close together. What's the likelihood that someone probably heard something? I mean, breaking glass probably makes a pretty loud noise, especially if it's forceful. I guess unless the guy was sneaky.
So you're the pessimist. You're the optimist, and I guess I'm the
You
Hail
were the
Mary
wild
guy.
card, yeah. You assigned yourself your own thing.
Let's go.
After refusing to do a polygraph repeatedly, he finally yielded. He passed the duct tape test, unlike his polygraph test, which showed signs of deception.
Wait. They just have him rip duct tape and see if he rips it the same way as the perp?
You're starting to see a flaw in this, aren't
That's
you?
a crazy accusation to make.
Maybe he just used scissors.
Maybe he used the knife or whatever weapon he used to stab it. But it's also like, if you're the murderer and they come up to you, hey, we're trying to see if you killed this person who ripped duct tape. You mind ripping this duct tape for us? Why would you rip it? Like, it could be so easily finessed. I don't get it.
Like a hand. Like I think the idea is behind it would be like almost like the handwriting test, where like you have you sign something to see if it's the same way if you wrote another letter. How does one person break duct tape differently than the next?
Who's to say that the same person who rips it the same way on a microscopic level isn't ripping it differently every time?
To both of your guys' things, it's like, how many ways are there to rip duct tape? Like, Bob in Alaska might have an exact match to whoever did kill this person, and it doesn't mean anything, because it's like, there's two ways: you bite and tear, you tear, or you cut it. I don't know what other ways you could rip duct tape.
I don't imagine someone standing up in court being like, ladies and gentlemen, he rips duct tape the exact same way as the killer.
Yeah. So hearing his test showed signs of deception, what does that do for you on his guilty level?
I feel like it doesn't change anything. I think honestly what's more incriminating is just changing his story. I think polygraph tests just in general aren't very accurate.
If someone gave me a polygraph test asking if I killed JFK, I think I'd still be pretty nervous.
I was going to say, if I'm hooked up anywhere in a police station, you're just going to think about all the stuff you have done, right? Like, oh, Fitch, I didn't stop at that stop sign or whatever.
They compared fibers in his car to fibers found on the duct tape used on Jenny, which came back negative. With no physical evidence and Doug lawyering up, the police ultimately had to move on from Doug.
What does that mean?
Like, fibers found on the duct tape that was wrapped around Jenny, they assumed it was from a car.
Oh.
So they're like, well, if the pigments in this duct tape match with car pigments of your car, this duct tape came from your car. So it would point to him being the person who at least supplied the tape, not saying he wrapped it or anything.
So you're looking at like lint, little hair type things.
Lint's little hair fabrics, see if it matched his Honda Accord or whatever he had. How are we feeling about Doug?
Slim to moderate. I mean, there's some stuff here that's like questionable. You know, changing your story is your classic red flag.
How about for you? Why do you think he changed his story?
You know, I think he did it because he's hiding something, but I don't think hiding the identity of the killer or anything of that nature. I think it's more so that he either witnessed something that he was like kind of nervous about, like maybe not the actual killing or the guy coming out or something, but he saw something that he didn't like and didn't really want to get involved, didn't want to become under suspicion or anything like that. And so that's what I think personally. He doesn't, at least from what we've seen, he doesn't strike me as the dude who killed her, but it wouldn't shock me if he was hiding something relating to the murder.
I feel like the only thing you have on him is that story. Like we talked about already, is I don't think the polygraph test is enough to really make it incriminating. So I would say probably he's more not guilty.
Theory number 2. A former law officer, a man who has been named as Alan by the police, killed Jenny. 2 years after the murder, police received a call about a police impersonator claiming to be a detective and trying to get information on certain people. When they tracked that man down, it turned out he was a former reserve deputy from the same department working the Jenny Lynn murder case. Although he was in law enforcement before, that did not give him the right to present himself as such in order to get people to do stuff. With that, the police got a search warrant. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until they searched his car, finding the exact brand of duct tape used in the crime. However, the non-tangible evidence they discovered was far more incriminating. Alan lived in the same neighborhood as Jenny and knew her on a personal level. His daughter went to the same school with Jenny and he would drive her sometimes to the school. Not only that, but the house Alan lived in was the exact layout of Jenny's house, just flipped, meaning he would have no problem finding his way to an entry point and an even better hiding place inside the house.
That's some strong means right there.
When it comes to these things, I rarely believe in coincidences, and that's just like one too many.
Could I clarify real fast? Did it say
No.
he worked on the case?
To my knowledge, he didn't work on the case, but he was an officer of the department that was working on the case.
A reserve officer. So he was basically like Dwight Schrute, volunteered sheriff deputy on the weekends.
Like, hey, we need you to help with a parade or whatever, and he would come in his
okay.
on his Toyota Prius with a sticker slapped on it, like reserve officer or whatever. Something interesting to think about though is in the crime scene, the dog was like acting normal. David and I have lived with dogs. How likely is it that if an unknown person broke into the house who obviously stepped in the backyard where the dog would have saw them would not be going crazy knowing there's like a stranger in their house?
No, the dog would absolutely be going insane.
Let's say the person broke in at 1 and Jenny got home at what, 2? That's only an hour for the dog to like not be going ballistic. And dogs are persistent, man. Like to me, it just seems like whoever did do it might have known the dog, or the dog might have known them and not thought it's as crazy or whatever. Because if you know the dog's name, you can be like, hey, Max, calm down. And the fact you know their name, like, oh, okay, whatever. It's weird that the dog didn't seem disturbed at all, considering someone had broken into the house.
Yeah, but I mean, with that too, I will say, if you meet a new dog and give it like some beef jerky, it's your new best friend.
That's true. If he accounted for it, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because if he was there like an hour or so before she got home, that could have been enough time to calm the dog down.
And every now and again, you just lean out, throw a piece of jerky to him.
Yeah,
Good boy.
When dogs get treats, all bets go out the window. If for whatever reason the dog isn't barking because he knows the person, he could know Alan because Alan's gone to his house before to pick up Jenny for school and whatever, right?
Right. You know, one more thing that I'll just add real quick. The exact brand of duct tape. How many brands of duct tape can you name?
One.
Gorilla? Is that a duct tape?
Mm-hmm.
So they're just duck, like has a duck on it.
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
That's the only one I can think of right now off the top of my head.
And so I don't know, like I have some Gorilla duct tape in my car. Mostly just because I feel like I always need tape.
Well, actually, I was going to ask that. How many of you guys travel with duct tape in your car? I don't.
I do, yeah.
I don't.
Like, I find it, maybe it's like an older dude thing to travel with duct tape. Like, every single one of these dudes having duct tape in their car, I'm like, holy crap, dude, that many people travel with duct tape?
Yeah. I don't think it's odd.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, the odds of someone going to the same Ace Hardware and buying Gorilla tape, pretty good, I would say, personally, but hopefully they did the duct tape rip test with this guy to determine if he killed her.
Because that will, right?
That's important.
Because that works.
When I kept reading into it, I'd be like, oh, this guy had duct tape in his car. That's crazy. Oh, this guy had duct tape. That's crazy. This guy had, and it's come to the point where like, maybe I'm the weird one because I don't have duct tape in my car.
Furthermore, he would know the schedules of Jenny and his parents, knowing when she would be alone. Armed with this knowledge, the police sent the duct tape and fibers from his car to the FBI for testing, while they also had Alan perform the same task as Doug did with ripping the duct tape. They also brought Alan in for interrogation. According to the detectives, he got very frustrated when he realized they were suspecting him of the murder. He claimed he was with his family when they saw the police arrive at Jenny's house that day. The interrogation led nowhere, and even worse, the results came back. It was not the same roll of duct tape used on Jenny, and no fibers in the car matched the crime scene. But his tear marks had similarities to those from the crime scene.
Oh no.
Somehow.
Guilty. The fact he got angry when questioned about it actually, to me, shows more of his innocence than guilt, because there's a lot of things I've watched where guilty people, when confronted with whatever thing they committed, don't react aggressively, which is actually the normal thing too if you're innocent. Because if I go, Ethan, you hit my car, what the heck, and you didn't hit my car, you're going to get immediately defensive and be like, what the heck, no I didn't, or whatever. But if you did hit my car, you'll be like, no, well, it's just a dink or whatever. You won't immediately get defensive. And it's what happens in a lot of interrogations where people who are confronted, they don't react in such a way as an innocent person would react, which is getting frustrated and asking the cops, are you serious?
From personal experience, if we're going to tie this back to Secret Hitler, the board game,
I don't know. Keep going.
The classic move is to act pissed off when someone accuses you of being a fascist or Hitler or whatever, and act like it's so offensive. Yeah. I would say in the affirmative. That's absolutely a reaction that someone would have
if they were guilty.
Guilty or innocent. Like I could see someone who's guilty knowing this and having that reaction, or the opposite.
Yeah.
They had Alan take a computer voice stress analyzer test, which is like a polygraph, but with your voice, to see if he was hiding something. He passed the test, but thanks to retrospect, we have learned from the FBI that those tests are only 50% reliable, showing that his results don't prove anything.
Tell me, did you kill Jenny? No!
Once again, police were left with almost no evidence, but when it came to Alan, the means, motive, and opportunity were all there. Maybe he moved too fast, and by the time police caught up, it was already too late to know if he was the man they were searching for.
Well, what are our thoughts on Alan?
I agree with the assessment that the means, motive, and opportunity were all there, but I feel like, again, there's just not a lot of evidence to truly incriminate him. The voice test was obviously not that reliable. There's the duct tape rip test. Like, they're doing these tests, and there's nothing concrete to fully presume him guilty.
Do you think he's a stronger suspect than Doug, or no?
I would say so.
Yes, I think he's a stronger suspect than Doug. I don't think he did it, though.
I think it's interesting that nothing he actually did was suspicious. It's just the fact his circumstances make him suspicious. Unlike Doug, who straight up lied to the police.
It's hard to assess why she was murdered in the first place.
And nothing was taken either.
Nothing was taken.
Not burglary.
It's almost like it could be like a serial killer or someone with like an antisocial disorder that just wanted to kill someone just to kill someone.
See, Ethan, this is why we invited you onto the show, because check this out.
Theory number 3, the only publicly named suspect by police, serial killer Sebastian Alexander Shaw, carried out the murder. Sebastian was a Vietnamese serial killer and rapist. 2 months after the murder, Sebastian was confronted by police while sleeping in a stolen car in Portland, Oregon. The car was reported stolen in San Ramon 3 days after the murder. San Ramon is only 15 minutes away from Castro Valley, where Jenny lived. Reports vary on what was found in the car. Some state that the police found stolen guns, gloves, cords, tools for breaking into places, and duct tape, while other reports say a mask, knives, porn, a murder kit, and a blue bag. But multiple records report that duct tape was found in the car. When the Portland Police Department contacted San Ramon about the stolen car and what was found, they immediately called the Alameda County Police. Sebastian was now on their radar, and they asked for the duct tape to be sent and analyzed for possible connection to Jenny's murder. While that was happening, they learned Sebastian had worked in Southern California from April to at least May in 1994. The nail in the coffin would be the results from the duct tape found in his possession. The results concluded, no match. However, it doesn't end there. In 1998, Sebastian would be arrested again. This time, it was for the stabbing and murder of J. Rick Bale in 1991 and the murder and rape of Donna Ferguson and Todd Rudiger in 1992. Donna Ferguson had been bound, raped, and stabbed to death, just like Jenny. Sebastian pled guilty to the 2 murders, but denied any involvement with Jenny Lynn. This is until a former cellmate of Sebastian's told police he had information that could be of much value to them. He said that while sharing a cell with Sebastian bragged to him that he had killed way more than the police thought, around 10 people. He told how he liked carrying out these crimes, binding the victims with duct tape before sexually assaulting them and ultimately stabbing them to death. Jumping on this news, the police would interrogate Sebastian again. This time would prove to be more fruitful as he relayed the same information to the police about how he had killed more and his method of doing so, with little to no pressure. But when pressed about Jenny Lynn, he denied committing any murder in Castro Valley and dodged all their follow-up questions. With a promising suspect and needing solace in the form of answers, Jenny's dad, John, reached out to Sebastian. He wrote him a letter pleading for Sebastian to confess about his involvement with his daughter's murder. In the letter, John said, quote, "Your answers to these questions may help put a closure to my daughter's death. However, if I don't receive your answers, it's also an indication to me that you are responsible for the murder, but didn't have the courage to admit it." End quote. What do you think of that quote right there?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no matter the outcome, homeboy thinks he killed his daughter.
Yeah, that's one way to find comfort. I mean, it's just to assume it was him. Because, I mean, at that point...
He needs answers.
He needs answers. And I think he's just settled that this is the most likely suspect, and that's what's giving him solace.
Yeah, because the way he phrased it, he sets it up where he's going to get an answer no matter what.
Just going back to some of the other stuff we've talked about before, is I think it's interesting that he pled guilty to the 2 murders originally, and then he also did admit to the other murders, but yet he still won't fully admit to the Jenny murder, which I find interesting. That if he's willing to brag about these other murders, why not just admit that it was this one girl?
So I found that interesting too, and there was a statement from police during their interrogation. Police implied the reason he denied it was because if he admitted to killing a 14-year-old girl, it would just make his life so much harder in prison.
Sebastian sent a letter back, not believing that this letter was authentic. Rather, a reporter posing as the father trying to get answers. John affirmed he was indeed the father, but denied Sebastian's request to have his personal number or meet face to face. In the letters, Sebastian claimed he had stolen the car in San Ramon because his car he was living out of at that time broke down. The duct tape and knives in his car were because he was homeless and needed protection and a way of fixing things. He also denied he used duct tape in any of his other murders and that they were all spur-of-the-moment acts of aggression. John's letters did seem to reveal something about how Jenny was killed. His letter asks, quote, "How did you choose your victims and why did you slash their throats?" End quote, possibly implying that Jenny had her throat slashed as well, which would lend credence to the difficulty of confirming a murder weapon. With Sebastian not entertaining John's claims of being the father, and John refusing to meet with Sebastian, the letters between them stopped. The Alameda police were determined to take Sebastian to court for Jenny's murder. Unfortunately, the courts didn't think they had enough evidence and denied their request. In a grim parallel to his victims, Sebastian died in prison in 2021, and with him went any answers he may have had.
Well, one thing that I think is interesting is that the father didn't want to meet with him in person. I find that to be interesting, and maybe you guys will push back on this. Not giving out your personal number, completely valid. Granted, I don't know how he would reach you outside of scheduled prison phone call time.
Yeah, and if he did start to harass you, you would kind of know immediately who it was and just block him.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it seems kind of weird to me. At least the impression that I get is that he had already decided that he was the killer, and outside of getting a written confession, didn't really have any interest in meeting with him face to face because he just
wanted a yes.
Yeah, because just like in his letter, you confess to it, or I know you did it anyway. I don't know. I think it's interesting that Sebastian even wanted to meet with him in person versus just talking through letters.
Well, do you think that lends any credence to his innocence?
I don't know. I mean, I could see both ways. It's not like a serial killer has a lot of social logic, but I do think that the fact that he wanted to meet with him does speak to some kind of irregularity.
I don't blame the father for not wanting to meet with Sebastian. I think it would be really hard to confront someone that you think, and I think he personally believed that this man definitely killed his daughter. I think that'd be a hard thing to do, and that's why I think you want to do it just through letter. I don't know, I feel like it'd be kind of a hard experience to confront the person.
I agree. It'd probably be very emotionally taxing to go and talk to him in person, but at the same time, you're so determined to get an answer, and you think this guy is the person, but then you deny actually being able to get your answer you want because you just don't want to go in. You can do that. Unfortunately, it was two stubborn forces conflicting where it's I don't believe you are the father. Well, I am. Well, prove it. Meet me in face. No. Well, okay, we're going in circles at this point. Who knows what's in the mind of a grieving father, but when it's kind of your only chance, I was surprised he didn't meet him in prison.
To me, it seems like the most likely culprit so far. With the way he murdered his other victims, it's very similar to how Jenny was. She was tied up, naked. And I think something might have happened where he got spooked and he didn't have time to enact what he wanted to do. So he decided cut his losses, kill her, get that satisfaction, and leave.
I think his situation is pretty compelling. I don't really have a reason to say that he didn't do it, but I just don't feel like he did.
He had the means, he had the same exact tools, and he's probably a skilled man at getting into people's houses. And then he had the opportunity, he was suspected to be in the area, which again, it's what are the coincidences of that? And then finally, the one thing that we've been having a hard time with figuring out with the other suspects is motive.
Yeah.
I think he has the strongest motive out of all of them.
Because he's done it before.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes motive can trump some of the other things.
Let me show you a picture of this guy.
I do love judging a book by its cover.
Not
fan.
No, not like determining his guilt based on his look. Rather, something we've already talked about based on this guy's potential body type. It's only a headshot, but this is what he looks like. You could infer he's bigger. Remember how small the circle was in the window? Do we think that guy could have fit in?
But do we think any of the other guys could have gotten in?
Like, who's more likely? A fat person or your average build?
I guess for sure like a smaller guy. What do you think, Sean, though? Do you think he, out of the three so far?
I agree with everything said. Just he's the only one that does have motive, and the only motive is he did it before, and that's all. He was in the same place around the same time, has done it before. How or why he would have targeted Jenny in specific has always been called into question, because why? Well, he's claiming he does spur of the moments. Maybe it was a spur of a moment, but something like that seems more planned than spur of the moment, because most likely he was there before Jenny got home.
I mean, that's a pretty big shift, in my opinion, from spur of the moment to now planned. But he could very well have been a spur of the moment thing and just happened to catch her at home by herself. But again, if he was in the house earlier and waiting for her, that's not really spur of the moment.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you'd come to your senses and be like, holy crap, I'm in this person's house. There's a quote that I would like to use more. I don't know if Sherlock said it. Terry can fact check me on this. But it's essentially when you've eliminated the impossible, the improbable becomes the solution or reality. So it's like out of all these dudes, when you eliminate the impossible and the improbable could be reality, they all could be the person who did it, because nothing of these people make it impossible for them to have committed this thing.
You know, it's like that meme that you showed me yesterday.
Oh gosh, wait. Can we say this on air?
Yes.
This one
we can. No, but it was one about like statistical analysis, and it was like
yes,
the whole concept and principle of statistics, and then the dude in the back who's like crashing in, and it's like each decision only has a probability of 50% because it either does or doesn't happen. Something about what you said just reminded me of that, and I had to bring it up.
Theory number 4. A mysterious man who confronted John killed Jenny after failing to kidnap her. 2 weeks before Jenny's murder, John was returning from work and got off the train to get to his car when a stranger approached him and said, quote, "I have a proposition for you. I got your daughter," end quote. John immediately backed away and jumped in his car. The man didn't leave. He stood by John's door and motioned him to roll down his window. John sped out of there, very disturbed by the whole encounter. Before making it too far, he turned around thinking he should get a good look at whoever this man was. But when he returned, the stranger was nowhere to be seen. He rushed over to Jenny's viola teacher's house and saw his wife's car parked outside. Knowing they were safe, he called his other daughter, who was miles away in college. She was also fine. John thought nothing more of it than a bizarre encounter.
What possible logical reason could that dude have had to go up to John and tell him that?
So, like, why that man would go up to John and explain that he kidnapped his daughter? Like,
yeah, when he had it.
Why he did that?
Yeah, why would he do that? Why would someone do that?
And we don't know anything else from that interaction. We just know that he confronted John. Did he ask for money or anything like that?
The only thing that has been publicly stated that he said is what I read.
He says, "I have a proposition for you. I got your daughter." So he was going to offer something, but before he could get there, he was out of there.
Yeah.
But this was 2 weeks before, which means he didn't actually have the daughter.
Yeah, and he went and checked, and his daughters were fine.
I don't have anything like crazy, concrete, or specific. I mean, we only have 2 sentences of context. Homeboy walks up to John and says, "I have a proposition for you. I got your daughter." Literally knowing those 2 sentences. Maybe the guy, instead of saying that he had his daughter, he was saying that he was going to take his daughter. And either John misinterpreted or misheard that, but I do think that is a possibility. Or he was seeing how John would react and like exactly what he would do so that he could follow John to wherever his daughters were and then get a sense of where the dude actually lived because it doesn't sound like it says mysterious man. It doesn't sound like he knew John that we know of, or that John knew him.
He knew him well enough to know he had a daughter, though.
True. To your point, he could have known John well enough to know that. How on earth he got that information, I have no idea.
You're saying he was testing the waters, kind of?
Either John misheard him, is my thing, and he said, I will have your daughter, or I'm going to kidnap your daughter, or he somehow knew already that John had a daughter, or just took a wild A guess, and then followed him back to his house in order to later commit a crime.
One thing I'd add to that, I actually agree with almost all of those.
Get your own theory, Ethan.
I'm adding on to my own theory, to the theory. Don't worry. I think maybe, in a sense, was testing the waters, but you know, like those scammers who are trying to make you do something like instantly? You have a virus on your phone. You need to act right now to fix it. I'm like thinking like maybe he was like, hey, I have your daughter. Give me money right now or I kill her. But before he could like finish anything, he was out of there.
He's just hoping he doesn't call his bluff.
Yeah, he didn't call his bluff. He went immediately to go check on his daughters instead of listening to this guy. So possibly, maybe this guy was just going to try to get some quick money from him, and then we could add on to like maybe decide to follow him, and he actually found out where his daughters lived, and etc.
That is the craziest scam to try to do to someone. I imagine that has a 0% success rate.
And I also think his choice of words of your daughter instead of like Jenny, or whatever the girl's name at college would be. I do think the omission of that, if those are his exact words, is interesting, kind of giving credence to Ethan's comment there. I do think that his lack of a name is interesting.
This is why I have you guys on this show. He's trying to dap you up. There you go. Terry, he gave me jack crap. He couldn't come up with anything. So.
Come on, Terry.
Terry, you're on thin ice, bro.
John described him as a dark-colored man, 5'8" to 5'10", and anywhere from 35 to 45 years old.
I'm going to show you guys a photo of a police sketch of what this guy allegedly looked like. Ethan, what's the first thing that you notice?
Scary looking Asian man.
Going back to what you said, I could be looking way too into this, right? Jenny and her family are Taiwanese. Another suspect was a Vietnamese. This guy looks very Asian. Could it have been some sort of like targeted thing to Asians in an Asian community or something?
Or theory number 5. The killer is Danny Trejo.
Who?
This guy.
What the?
When you showed us this
That's
sketch,
what you thought?
No. This is like what immediately popped into my head. Like that's just what I associated with it, and I thought it was so funny. I had to remember this dude's name and look him up.
Police were never able to track down or find anything more on this person and thought it was nothing more than a very odd coincidence. But what if it wasn't? What if the man had seen John with Jenny from time to time? Knowing John's work schedule, not having kidnapped anyone before and wanting to know how John would react to a kidnapping, approached him to see if he would react in a way that would give the man a lot of money for his daughter's safe return. And once he figured John would be that type, he tracked down his house, stalked them, and waited for Jenny to be alone. But it being his first time, he panicked and killed Jenny just to barely escape, wearing head covering, carrying a blue duffel bag with red stripes, cutting through a baseball field, never to be seen ever again.
After hearing that, do you think it's just a coincidence?
I just think it's odd. Just the way it still went down. Like the scene, like if it was hypothetically his first time, he did a really good job at covering up the scene. They couldn't figure out what he killed him with. This man just disappeared.
Honestly, your theory that he literally was just trying to make a quick buck or whatever, I could totally see it.
And it just happened like 2 weeks later, his daughter died. Like, it's a crazy coincidence, but it's like maybe it could have happened.
To me, is it more believable that it's a coincidence, or is it more believable that there's some involvement with Jenny's murder? I go towards the involvement because it's just so out of the blue.
One thing we have to remember is going back is the father felt pretty convinced that it was Sebastian. I mean, if he had memory of this guy that like 2 weeks earlier kidnapped him, like I feel like as the father, I'd be more convinced it was him.
True, because if he had looked at the guy and then saw Sebastian on the news, he'd be like, holy crap, that's the guy I met at the train station.
Right, which would have been crazy and maybe could have solved the case.
That's
not what happened. And maybe just the father decided just to settle on Sebastian because he could never figure out that other guy.
What if? So he doesn't get a great look at the guy. The police drop a sketch. I don't know the timing of the sketch, how long it took. Maybe it was that weekend. Maybe it took
I think
weeks.
I think the sketch was made after the murder because he I don't think he reported it at all, but then his daughter gets murdered and he's like, well, what just happened to me 2 weeks ago? So, well, like you were saying with the faulty memory of what the guy actually said, 100% valid. Because it's like, could you remember after 2 weeks verbatim what he said?
I think there's something to be said that this is the only publicly announced suspect. If he has a vague idea of what this guy looked like, and then it comes out that, oh, we suspect it's Sebastian. Mm-hmm. And that influences the details that he remembers from his encounter at the train station. And so seeing that, oh, this is the public suspect, and he's roughly, what was it, 5'8", 5'10".
And Asian.
Of Asian descent. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the dude that he met at the train station now becomes the guy they suspect overall. I don't know. I think there could be something there, whether or not that's just like, well, that is 100% me just speculating. Mm-hmm. But I do think that's an interesting thing that the police sketch would have come out after that, and that he would have had a decent amount of time to reprocess, re-remember, or kind of put his own bias spin on it. But who knows, how credible that kind of theory is.
I mean, our memories are really messy, especially after 2 weeks, because it wasn't reported till like weeks later, and plus he is processing his daughter's murder. I think things could be really fuzzy.
Well, because it's like, are you going to remember verbatim what he said, or are you just going to remember the general idea of...
He probably heard daughter kidnapping and was gone.
And proposition.
Yeah.
Was the tragic death of Jenny carried out by a neighbor who had the means and lied to the police about his whereabouts? A former officer who knew Jenny personally and would know the family schedules and when to strike? A serial killer who was around at the time and killed other women in the same way as Jenny was killed? Or an unknown man who approached John with a proposition that seemed too absurd to be a coincidence? Some say her death will be another link in the chain of unsolved murders. We say maybe the truth will take us across state lines.
If you guys had to put someone in jail for it, let's say it is one of these dudes, who are you choosing?
I feel most comfortable with Sebastian. He had the strongest motive, which is the most convincing to me. He was willing to admit that he had killed other people. He killed people in the similar fashion that Jenny was killed. I think it makes him very likely.
I'm going to redact my earlier statement about the feeling that it just wasn't him. There's obviously a lot missing. And I think there's enough holes to where I wouldn't say I'd, put him in jail. There's just a lot of coincidences that line up. I would say he's the most likely, but I wouldn't feel absolutely confident that it was him.
I'm going to go with the second option, Alan. He was a reserve officer. That could explain why there was no evidence found, why it was so clean. He would know what not to do. He lived by her. He knew her personally. He knew the schedules of the parents because he would sometimes take the daughter to school or whatever. There's something about that where I'm just like, a little too coincidental for me to just rub it off as coincidence. Yeah, anything else more you guys want to say?
No.
I think we summed it all up.